I'm J. Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast all about the ins, the outs, and the retcons of comics' greatest superhero soap opera.
We're also the hosts of Jay and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X-books that come out each week.
Live from Books with Pictures in Portland, Oregon.
We are talking this week about the books of June 29th, 2016. And sorry about the thing, I couldn't stop home after workouts before here, but I do get to show off my sweet Paragon tattoo, so there is that.
I apologize for nothing.
Nor should you.
So we've got 2 books this week. Let's dive in.
First off, we have Uncanny X-Men number 9, written by Cullen Bunn with art by Ken Lashley, colors by Nolan Woodard, and just for kicks, letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. This is one part of the continued Apocalypse War storyline, which all of the Team X books are in right now, and it remains a little strange and a little confusing, but also a lot of fun. And I gotta say, Ken Lashley's such a good fit for this book, and I wish he would stick around forever. I know we're gonna have Greg Land coming back after this storyline, but Lashley is a super solid artist, and if any decision-making people at Marvel are watching this, I recommend hiring him for more things.
Specifically, Lashley is a super solid artist in ways that go beyond not being Greg Land.
Specifically,
which was his primary the primary qualification for which we were lauding him at first. But yeah, he is so solid in his own right. Like, I think he's a great fit for this book.
Good likenesses, good expressiveness, and I think we mentioned this last time or the time before, but the way Lashley draws specifically M-Plate and also Genocide, really cool. A lot of great texture there, very monstery, very horror-esque, which both those characters should be.
There's a lot about the artists on actually both of the books this week that remind me a little bit of Generation X era Chris Bachalo.
You know? Okay.
That angularity.
Okay. Ramos and Bachalo.
Expressiveness. Ramos and Bachalo, definitely. But Lashley even a little bit, and especially the way he draws M-Plate. He's got sort of that rawness. I recently reread Assault on Weapon Plus, and I think there's a similar sort of style of texture and especially monstrousness approach to that in the line art.
Now, as far as plot, once again, we have the sort of angel-archangel cult thing going on. Once again, we have the Morlock tunnels with M-Plate thing going on, and Phantom X and Mystique doing whatever it is they're doing. And the plot lines still haven't completely converged. We do see them do so somewhat this time. Specifically, we see more of Mystique interacting with Magneto, which is awesome, and which actually brings me to something I want to talk about. So this book has 3 very strong, very, in some ways, sarcastic and arrogant female characters. Like, the way that Psylocke, Mystique, and M have historically been written, there's definitely some overlap there with all 3 of them. And I really enjoy that Cullen Bunn has a distinct voice for all of them nonetheless. Betsy as this moral center of the team, M as this surprisingly emotionally present but sort of shell of ice character, and Mystique as just, for lack of a better word, a little bit cruel, which I think is a quality that suits her very well and fits. The way she talks to Magneto, the way she just sort of needles him and turns the dagger a little bit more whenever she criticizes him, that's consistent, and the fact that they're all written so beautifully, it's like the anti-Wheel of Time in that regard. It's great.
Honestly, Magneto's voice is the only one I'm having trouble buying in this, which is ironic because Bunn has written him so well and so consistently in the past.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think for me it's less his voice and it's more his motivations. I mean, we've learned over the last couple of issues that the reason he started this sort of X-Force-y version of the X-Men is because Archangel fell to Earth and told him to save the mutants, and he said, yes, I should do that thing. And when he finds out that that wasn't exactly Archangel's own influence, that it was this darker influence behind him, all of a sudden he's super depressed. And for me, that rings a little hollow. Like, it's almost like the way Storm's been written in Extraordinary X-Men. I feel like both those characters should have sterner wills. They should both have willpower that just drives them as their core trait, and we're not really seeing that. And in this, we're not really seeing that with Magneto. He seems a little too easily dissuaded.
Well, both of those characters should have much more intrinsic motivation. I mean, part of why the whole angel thing rang false to both of us when we talked about this last time was that he basically fell down to Earth to tell Magneto something that was already Magneto's primary motivation a lot of the time. And so having him then, having the fact that Angel might have meant something else by it not be enough to continue inspiring him, it's odd. It's really bizarre, and it's a really odd fit for the character. This might be something that makes more sense in light of the 8-month gap, but considering that at this point it's been more than 8 months and we still don't know what happened then, there's only so much we can keep on leaning back on that and assuring ourselves faithfully that certainly it will make sense of it all, because now there's more and more and more that it's going to need to make sense of.
That said, one thing I do still enjoy mystery-wise is the mystery of what the deal with the drone version of Archangel is. And this issue sells that a little bit more. We have a big multi-page just agonizingly, slowly, tensely paced reveal regarding Archangel that I think works really well. Like, I don't know if it's what I would call an efficient use of page count, but the emotional heft of it for me rang quite true and has me in a super tense, what's going to happen place for the next issue, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in what's going to happen than I feel abreast of what's currently happening. But yeah, it's an intriguing story. Whether it's a good one, I feel like we're still waiting to see.
Yeah, this will probably be a story that plays well or not in the trade, but right now in the middle of it, it's really hard to say how it's gonna pan out. So fingers crossed. We have some amazing talent on this book, a great combination of characters. So I really hope this ends up being one of the greats. I think we have at least one more, maybe two parts. So let's see what happens.
Next up is Extraordinary X-Men number 11, written by Jeff Lemire, with pencils by Humberto Ramos, inks by Victor Olazaba, and colors by Edgar Delgado. This is also continuing the Apocalypse Wars storyline, and doing so, I think, somewhat more successfully than Uncanny X-Men. This is a book that, for the first several arcs, had a rough time catching its stride, and Apocalypse Wars has really kind of allowed Humberto Ramos and Jeff Lemire as a team to kind of emerge and really start to key in on the voice of this book. And that's definitely continuing on here. We have the X-Men in a future world facing off against a kind of weird set of Horsemen of Apocalypse, and ultimately in this issue, Apocalypse himself. And we see some more attention to team dynamics, sort of mixed and matched from the previous batch, and on a few characters who've largely been on the back burner so far. Most notably in this issue, I think, Nightcrawler, who really, like the creative team, kind of finally gets to come into his own and catch his stride.
Oh man, he's so good in this. And specifically, while I haven't been so big on the writing of Storm in this series, she seems a little less confident, a little more hesitant. The dynamic between Kurt and Aurora is just solid.
Yeah, this feels like an earned evolution for Nightcrawler, too, at this point. Like, we're starting to see more consistency with his previous iterations, but we're also seeing him as a character who has changed and for whom that change has been narrative and earned, which I really dig. For me, the real driver here, though, is Ramos's art.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on like the effectiveness of Ramos's art in this book, but in this issue, he knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, he just nails it, and I don't know if it's a time issue. I don't know if it's that this bit of the story just really grabbed him. I don't know if it has to do with the interplay between the creative team, but he is on point here. His storytelling is amazing. His faces have that fantastic expressiveness that they do at their best. I mentioned Bachalo in context of Uncanny as well, but Ramos is much more obviously working in that tradition, and he's working here sort of in the tradition of Bachalo at his peak.
Yeah, and can we just talk about the Venom Wolverine design?
Yes, we can.
Oh, it's so good. Like, just so the Venom symbiote kind of possesses Old Man Logan, and not only is it super creepy writing of the character with just enough of Logan's personality to make him that much scarier to his friends, but just the way the symbiote is just this like massive liquidy sharp thing that Logan periodically bursts through, but it also surrounds, is so creepy.
The way it interacts not only with the other figures in the panel, but with the panel itself and the spaces it occupies, do a really good job of presenting not only how overwhelming it is, but the kind of motion that it's in.
And that's something Venom should have.
So what do you think of the story?
So story-wise, I mean, my favorite chapter was definitely the one with the kids, with,
Agreed.
Glob Herman and Annabelle and Ernst and No Girl. And we're seeing a little bit less of them, which is unfortunate, but the fact that they're now working with the X-Men is cool. As far as the nature of this world, as far as the fact that we get to see Apocalypse a little more, and it's a different version of Apocalypse than we've been familiar with in the past, it's interesting. Like, it does what a single issue should always do, which is make me interested in what happens next. But I've also been kind of pondering, well, okay, if this thing is this way, then what would that say about this aspect of the world? It's fun to just sort of be able to sink our teeth into the bits and pieces we get of Omega World, of Apocalypse's new far future world.
You know what story hook I'm really excited about? It's a non-Apocalypse one. I am really excited about Sapna.
Yeah, Ilyana's sort of apprentice friend, daughter figure.
Her protege, her now, I guess, former protege, since Sapna is heading off on her own this issue, but she's doing so with some significant story hooks, and ones that make me really wonder about her ties to Ilyana's past, and to some specific points of her backstory. I'm not going to spoil that, but yeah, this issue was on point, and honestly, I think it's one of the best we've seen of Extraordinary so far. This arc really has me excited about this book in ways that I have not been previously at all in its run. And I'm hoping that it keeps this momentum as it continues through the rest and as it goes on as the flagship series of the line. So that's 2 of 2. What's our book of the week?
Our book of the week has got to be Extraordinary X-Men. Uncanny was pretty good, it was interesting, but Extraordinary, I think what excites me is this is supposed to be the flagship book of the X universe, and it's finally starting to feel like it. We have characters that are starting to feel like themselves, not, entirely, but certainly much more so. We have a plot that's actually engaging and is giving us a new look at a corner of the X universe that we haven't really seen this take on before. We have phenomenal art by Ramos, which was glorious, so yeah, it's fun stuff. It's certainly not an issue to jump into. We're very much in the middle of a storyline, but I think Apocalypse Wars, for me, is going to be the first Extraordinary storyline that really feels like what I wanted this book to be. What about our panel?
Well, we are cheating a little this week. I say that every week. You know what?
It's our show.
It's our show.
We can do whatever.
Our panel this week is actually the cover of Extraordinary X-Men number 11. We talked a bit about how much we love the way Venom moves and occupies and interacts with both space and other characters. And this is the best example of that. It's also Ramos at his best compositionally, expressionally, in terms of faces and figures, and just in terms of a really superlatively designed cover.
That is it for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, but think it would be way better without our faces, check out our podcast, Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at explainthexmen.com, also on Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. What have we got for them this week?
So we are finally out of Inferno. We're diving back into X-Men with a couple of our very favorite issues, both Ladies' Night and Men, which feature, among other things, the first appearance of everybody's favorite chili fry devouring mall rat, Jubilee, and man, she is awesome, like from panel 1.
That podcast, these video reviews, and everything at explainthexmen.com are brought to you by our Patreon subscribers. We are an entirely listener-supported project. That's what keeps us on the air. It's what keeps us entirely ad-free. And those are the folks who make that possible. If you want to join their ranks, help unlock other cool stuff, you can do that at the link either above or below this video, depending on where you're watching it.
In the meantime, we will see you next week. Take care.
Hi, this is Jay sneaking into the tag to recommend a non-X book. There's not a new one this week, but if you are not following Power Man and Iron Fist, you should be because it's awesome. Number 4 is a standalone. It's a great jumping on point. And it's also just a great book in general, so you should catch up on all of it and subscribe to it because it's amazing and beautiful, and David Walker and Sanford Green, and why would you not be reading that? So good.